Alright, students, welcome to week 9, class 2. Keep calm, I'll be back soon. The last video ended with telling you need to do a discussion board. I also posted 2 videos to show you how to do a discussion board. So those 2 videos are for my online class, so they talk about some other things such as them doing them each week and their due dates are Thursday. This is going to be a one-time discussion board that you are going to do, that you are going to post, and then you are going to respond to the other students, and so you will be posting twice. So one by Wednesday of next week and then the other by Sunday. And so just follow the directions and you should be good. But response 1, you are going to answer the prompt. It needs to be a 1-pager, meaning at least 4 paragraphs, which will be 16 sentences. And then you will come back after Thursday and you will be able to read others, because you cannot read others until you post. And you will choose someone or more than one person in the group and you will respond to them. And you will also attach a scholarly article or link that is going to show them where you got your evidence to support your reasoning, or a scholarly article or a link to oppose their viewpoint. So it's up to you whichever way you would like to do that. All right. So with chapter 9, let's see if my computer is going to go here. There we go. The very first thing is a little video I'd like you to watch. So if you click on it, it just shows you the importance that we need to see things in more than one way. So in the last video in class, he kept talking about being myopic and only seeing out of one lens. So if at all possible, we always want to see things out of multiple lenses. So click on that link and you will be able to see what I'm talking about. Alright, so chapter 6 is all about reading to learn. So we're going to focus on one thing that's called active learning. Sadly, many of you were not taught in school how to actively read, and so we are going to take a look at that. So what will active reading do for you? It's going to increase your focus and concentration, promote your greater understanding of what you read, and prepare you to study for your tests and exams. So your note card should say active reading and the back should say PIP. If you know what that stands for, you're good to go. If not, you would open this up and make sure you go over it again. So the 4 steps in active reading is going to be previewing, using strategies for marking your textbook, reading with concentration, and reviewing. And so PISR would be the little acronym that we're using there at the bottom. So 4 steps in active learning, and the back should say PSRR. And if you know what they stand for, you're good to go. If not, you will go back into your notebook to look at this. So first step, when we say previewing, get the big picture, outline, chunk, flashcards. You should do all of these things before you actually read. So you should go to the back of your chapter. You should read the chapter questions first because they're going to give you a purpose to what you are reading. You should define all of those key terms, because what is the point of reading and having to stop and constantly look words up? So if you already know them, if you already know the questions, if you have already outlined, then you have a big picture of what you are going to be reading. Also, while you're doing those things, you'll start making connections to previous items that you have read. So this helps you to make connections even before you read. Once you start reading, you should use these strategies. And the strategy of reading and thinking before you mark, all of this falls under the heading of annotating. Some of you were given soft back or paperback books in high school and you were taught how to annotate. And so this is where we're going to mark about main topics, main places, big ideas, events. You can also put questions that you have in the margins. You do not have to write in the textbook though. I have never written in a textbook in my life. Instead, I had a corresponding notebook that as I had questions or I found things that I needed, I would write it down in my notebook, but I would put the page number. So that's important. If you are not going to write in the textbook and you're going to write it somewhere else, you're going to do note cards, you're going to do it in a notebook, always make sure that you write down the page number. Even with electronic books, we can still annotate. You can make the sticky notes. You can do the comments next to it. So just because you're in an electronic medium doesn't mean you can't annotate. Next, we want to read with concentration. We have to realize that the time of day, our energy levels, our interest in the material, and our study locations will all affect our concentration. Also, music, TV, technology, all of those items we did in class, you cannot multitask well. You end up not being able to concentrate, having to reread, you are wasting your time, and especially if it's a new topic or a new concept you really need to concentrate on. So you need to have no distractions while you are reading. And if you're a morning person, do it in the morning. If you're an evening person, do it in the evening. You need to know which time of day is best for you, and that's usually going to correlate to your energy level too. If you don't eat until lunch, you're not going to have as much energy. From the moment you get up in the morning, you should be eating calories that help to increase your energy level throughout the day. And then we should be eating every 2 to 3 hours to keep that energy level up. So some of you are just dog tired because you're not getting the calories that you need. Or you're supplementing with like candy, caffeine in the form of coffee, sodas, and or these energy drinks. They give you a false sense of energy and then you crash and you feel even more tired. So you have to learn to maintain your energy levels. Also, some of you are not sleeping the 7 to 8 hours a night that is required. Those of you not even done with puberty should have 9.25 hours of sleep at night. So all of these things will affect your energy level, and you need to find the time of day you have the most energy. You also need to understand that if you're not interested in the material, you really have to concentrate. You really have to force yourself to do it. Things that we're interested in, we have no problem doing. So those wait till later. Things we're least interested in, let's get those knocked out the way first. And then lastly, study location. Find a place for you where there is no distraction. So whether you go to a Starbucks, which people walking in and out the door distract you, whether you go to the library, you go upstairs to the little terminals, any of those things, but somewhere that's nice and quiet for you. And then we always want to make sure that we are reviewing. So remember, read, write, recite. We need to say it out loud. We need to read out loud. By reading out loud, it helps us to retain it. Study groups has you read it out loud. Have you hear someone else read it out loud. So we want to make sure that we are reviewing. And if we're that visual person, let's post diagrams, outlines all around us so that we constantly have availability to it. So these, I'm not going to go into too much on your tests, but I left them there for you to read. The thing that you need to know the most is you need to use primary resources to learn more about your topic. So we discussed that a piece of paper alone doesn't do it anymore. You need to become content experts. And so textbooks, they're so big, they only go into the surface layer of the information you need. You need to go seek out other resources. In the back of your chapters, there will be links to people, articles, places they got information from. They also have little boxes in your book that are going to tell you, hey, go to this site to get more information. But when we talk about primary resource, it means it needs to come from the source. So if you take a look at my screen, if I went to the Daily Mail and I decided to go to health, and I read this article, let's see, killer diseases including the Black Death could return as global warming releases lethal microbes from thawing permafrost. So if I just read about permafrost and my teacher is going to give me an assignment, although this article is a surface article, means it gives me a synopsis of information, it's not considered primary resource. As a collegiate student, you would never quote the Daily Mail. You would never quote the Chronicle. You would never quote ABC News. That's not a primary resource document. However, in reading this, it does give me some information. The researcher is Peter Frankopan. So I could look him up. And then I see he's a professor at Oxford and go to his website. And then I can look for his press media. I can look for any of his articles that have been linked. And so obviously I can't go to his website, so I'm going to go to Google Scholar and see if I have any of his articles here. How do you spell his name again? Frankopan. All right, and so here's his book. Here's some other information. I can then go and find his actual articles, things that have been peer-reviewed, published as real information. That is what a primary resource is. Your textbooks are primary resource because it comes from experts. But I also can use places and things. So the Smithsonian is filled with the actual primary resources themselves. So if I wanted to talk about the Constitution, I can actually see it at the Smithsonian. However, I can use information off the Smithsonian website. I can use their pictures. I can use their articles, their information, because it is the primary resource itself housed there, and they have experts that speak about it. And so if you can actually get the person, like the best primary resource document here to talk to would be this Peter Frankopan that actually did this article. So it can also be a person as well. And so when we are looking to gather more information on things that we are learning, we want to use primary resource documents. When you write papers as a collegiate student, you must use primary resource documents. Wikipedia is not a primary resource document. Okay, many of you got away with that in high school, but that is not a primary resource document. So again, more specific stuff for math, science, social studies, text, and your supplementary materials. Here's where I like to stop and talk about in your courses. You need to really think about whether you can make an investment in an iPad or a reader of some sort, because it will pay off for itself in most times a semester or two. Textbooks are half the price if you buy them electronically. And so if your textbook at University of Houston, your first semester is $500, but you get them all online, that's $250. That means you could have bought a $250 reader. And then from here on out, it would have paid for itself. And many students don't do it until the price gets higher. Here at St. Jack, we do all we can to keep our textbook prices low, and so you don't realize the cost. When you get to major universities, textbooks will cost about $500 to $1,000 per year, depending on what major you are in. And so if you can get them now, I recommend that you get them now. Also, I recommend that you go to Amazon Prime Student, because they also give you deals as well. And if you get your book through Amazon, you can rent it. So you have the option to buy the electronic textbook, but you can also rent the electronic textbook. And so I paid like $15 one semester just to rent a book for 6 months. So if you have not used that, I recommend it. And the reason I say buy the iPad or the reader is so it can be moved with you. You can't move a desktop with you. So although I can read all of my textbooks on my desktop by opening Amazon, I can't bring that desktop with me. So if you can download the readers or have internet access on your laptop, that's fine. But these readers actually save the entire book for you. And so if you have the opportunity, I recommend you go ahead and get an electronic device now due to that. So how do we improve our reading? We want to monitor it. How do we monitor it? We ask questions along the way. And so I'm going to stop this video, and there will be a short next video to give you some steps on how to improve your reading.